Qualitative Research Methodology Module 3. And the intended learning outcomes for Module 3 distinguish the similarity and difference among research approaches, connect the methodology to the elements of research design, and the last is choose a research approach appropriate to a research project. But even before we move on to our discussion about, with my presentation about the different methodologies in quantitative research, let us reflect on this. Research to make a difference. What does this mean? Research to make a difference. Let us be mindful that our forefathers, the psychologists before us, their basic intention in trying to discover, getting into this systematic way of dealing with the life of people is simply to make a difference in the life of people, to touch the life of people, to listen very intently so that they will be able to save lives. Now, as a Filipino psychologist, as a Filipino researcher for that matter, how are we going to make use of research to make a difference in the lives of Filipinos? What is your plan? When you become a psychologist and research becomes part of your role or your plan, how are you going to make use of research to make a difference? Let us now proceed. All right. Research methodology. In Module 1, we've tried to describe this a lot already, but let us just go back to what is common, to what this concept is commonly known. Very often, when we talk about methodology and reading on the literature, methodology is often what they call this ascribed to as the research design or approaches to research. Okay, and there are times also when we're talking in the last module I talked about research design, and research design is not only about methodology, and methodology is only one element of research design. Okay, and on the other hand, also one common way to what they call this, subscribe to methodology is you call it approaches to research. So how are you going to study? How are you going to study a certain phenomenon? So you have different approaches. Okay, so depending on the intention, the research has to choose an appropriate research methodology or methodologies. So if a person is going to ask what kind of studies are you going to do, so now I'm going to present you at least 7 kinds of studies, qualitative studies, and we call this methodology. Let us begin with grounded theory study. Okay, this has been a common choice among many theories to use a grounded theory to come up with their own theory. So it is a research approach that intends to generate theory that will explain action, interaction, or process in the field. So later on, as you become more expert and become more experienced as a psychologist, and you might want to come up with your own theory in understanding a specific issue or a specific phenomenon in the life of people, So you might as well choose a grounded theory study. So what is the focus of the grounded theory study? So the focus of the grounded theory study is to generate or discover a theory. So either you want to develop your own, or you want to discover a specific theory. And the second one is to set aside theoretical ideas to let the substantive theory emerge. What does it mean? It means that you have to put aside your personal bias or your personal perspective, or perspective that is very strong to you. So you put that aside so you'll be able to focus very well on your on discovering your own theory. And another implication of this is that very often grounded theory would not recommend that you start with related literature. So it means you don't collect your related literature yet, because very often when you start doing your related literature, this concept will definitely influence how you're going to discover. So the concepts, the perspective that you read from the related literature will eventually influence how you think, on how you see a specific phenomenon during the research or during the gathering of data. And the third one is focus on how individuals interact with the phenomenon. So as you as you immerse rather in in a certain study, or for example in the life of people, so you will have to look into how individuals interact with the phenomenon. So later on I will be giving you an example of this. And later on, as you dive into a certain issue, you look into the interrelationship of different concepts, the interrelationship of the variables at play in the study. Okay, and again later on, as you dive into the data, you extract the data, then you derive a theory from that data. And after which, then is the time that you back up your theory by literature. So that is the time when you already have you're quite clear about what you believe in, the perspective that you're holding on to. So that is the time you have to dive into the related literature to support your claim. So let me give you some examples on what you can come up with in terms of using the grounded theory study. The first one is grade 6 students good in math are introvert. So we're saying that those who are good in math are introvert. So what you're going to do here is to dive into the experience of children, of the grade 6 students, and explore those students who are good in math and find out yourself if they are introvert and what makes them introvert. So given your findings, they will be able to come up with a better theory to explain this assumption. Or you might be able to come up with a different assumption, right, after your study. And the next one is artists suffer depression during COVID-19 lockdown. All right. So you might be able to come up with a better understanding of an artist given this kind of situation. So is it can we really hypothesize that when there are lockdown or that kind of pandemic, artists who become isolated to the society or to what they want to do are more susceptible to depression. And the next one is physically abusive parents suffered abuse in their childhood. So what could be a better theory that would describe abusive parents, right? Being gay is a social programming. Is it only a social programming? So you might be able to come up a better theory to understand um, the what they call this, the the issue of being gay. There's very often we talk about the genetic factor. Um, what about social programming? And with the social programming, it means does it mean you can reprogram? All right. Okay. The next one is case study. So the next choice you have in doing qualitative research is using case study, and this is very popular, and you can go over with lots of example in in the internet, giving you the volume of articles pertaining to case study. So, case study is a qualitative approach wherein the researcher intensively analyze and describe an experience of an individual or group within a specific space and time in real-time context. Okay, and the focus is exploratory. For example, you would like to explore. You are in the process of understanding a specific issue, a specific problem. So you would like to, when you're doing a case study, I mean, it's like the only intention is simply to explore what is happening out there. And the next one is you would like to do case study so that you'll be able to explain a specific phenomenon. Specifically, you would like to dive into the cause and effect relationship of specific variables. Okay, and the last one is the descriptive explains key features of a phenomenon within its context. So when you do case study, you also look into the different elements at play, the different concept, the different variables playing within the study and within a specific context. Let us look into the some specific examples here. For example, you would like to look into the well-being of college students diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So you would like um, to engage with people who were diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So what are the different situations happening in the life of the bipolar disorder? So what they're going to do? This is not just so how they do the case study. So this is not just a one shot interview. So you look into the series, in the life series of a person with bipolar disorder, and explore the aspect of well-being. Okay, and there's so many things to explore about bipolar disorder, rather with people with bipolar disorder. And the next one is socialization of children with autism and home environment. So you would like to look into the socialization of children and connect that with the home environment. So what is the connection between autism and the home environment, and its connection with socialization, and how a child, for example, um, the type of socialization of a child is this very much connected to the home environment. Okay, so that can be a good case. And then the last one is the cognitive and emotional responses of non-performing grade students, 3 students. So you will be observing grade 3 students who are non-performing. So you're going to look into the cognitive aspect. So these are the things you're going to observe, the cognitive aspect and the emotional aspect of children, okay, who were evaluated as non-performing. Okay, so by being able to create a case study for these children, they'll be able to come up with a better how do you call this, a better view on how things are happening for non-performing grade 3 students. So there might be something deeper happening with the cognitive aspect, or there might be something happening with the emotional responses, or there might be some other variables impacting the cognitive aspect, or some other variables impacting emotional responses. Right. And the next one is the phenomenological study. Phenomenology is very much derived from philosophy, the study of meaning. Okay, it is diving into the real life situation of the people and trying to understand how people make sense of their situation. So this study, if you would like to dive into in the meaning of life of people, given a situation, given a context, and observing them in the real life situation. So you might as well get into phenomenological study. So it explores the meaning of several people's lived experiences around a specific issue or phenomenon. The assumption is that there is a central meaning of an experience shared by individuals. So the focus of phenomenological study, so it focuses on the phenomenon that impacts people's lives in a large scale. So for example, the phenomenon of COVID-19, okay, and how it is impacting the lives of people in a large scale. So the phenomenon of millennialism. So how does this phenomenon impact the view of the young people? Okay, the story people narrate about the phenomenon. So you're also focusing about how people talk about their stories related to phenomenon and the objective and subjective meaning people attach to a phenomenon. So we do not discount that there is a subjective aspect happening during, I mean, how people interpret, but there's also the other one, which is the objective area. And the next one is the worldview of people as they live the phenomenon. So we create, given a phenomenon, for example, the COVID-19, we build our own perspective. We dive into different experiences. We embrace specific beliefs on what's happening. Okay. And the last one is to interpret the story. Okay. So you have the phenomenon as told by the people with their own meaning. So the last part of doing a phenomenological study is to what is our take about those stories? What is our take about the meaning? I mean, the meaning which people connect with a specific phenomenon. Of course, when we are interpreting our story, we cannot avoid the fact that we can be very subjective also. But we have to be to specify that in our research. Even if we try to be very objective, our being objective is also colored by I mean it was also influenced or colored by our subjectivity. So we could look into some examples of phenomenological study. COVID-19 and the concept of death among adolescents. So what are the perceptions? What are the experiences? What is the meaning? What is the new meaning, if ever there is, of young people about death, given the phenomenon of COVID-19? So what is the children's perception of lockdown? Because the children is one of those very much impacted by with the COVID-19 because of the lockdown of the quarantine, because they cannot get out. Okay. And the next one is TikTok or blogging and self perception. What is the meaning people attach to blogging? What is the story about of people engaging with TikTok, and how do they see themselves? What does self mean to them as they engage into this activity? Okay, so this phenomenon has become an aspect of social media, has become very, very popular. Okay, just for example, I mean, this is setting aside being, I mean, getting into politics. This is just an example of very interesting that you can explore. For example, the Duterteism and the worldview of fanatics, a psychological exploration. So you might as well come to think about, I mean, explore the mind, explore the experience, explore the story of the Duterte fanatics and how they got into got how they dive into that kind of experience of being a Duterte fan. Okay, it's just a very interesting to study. All right, and that is a phenomenon. It is a very popular phenomenon, and it is has been that phenomenon is impacting the million, is influencing the millions of Filipino. Not even on the politics side, but also in the perspective on how they see themselves as a Filipino. Okay, ethnography. Um, of course, when you talk about ethnography, it talks about ethnic. When you talk about ethnics, it's very much connected to the culture. So, what is ethnography? It's a research approach that describes culture, beliefs, attitudes, and values that structure behaviors and social interaction of a particular group or subgroup. Okay. So, if you are very much interested in looking at the culture of people, the values, the beliefs, so this is for you. So, this is a qualitative research that embraces a specific culture. Okay. So, how many islands do we have in the Philippines? Thousands and thousands of islands, and a specific island or islet inhabited by people. Definitely, there is a culture happening there. Okay. So for the past how many years? How many? 15 years. I have been very much interested in understanding community indigenous processes. Just for example, the Pintakasi, and have been working with the indigenous people also. That's why I've become very much interested also in understanding the life of indigenous people. So if you're into that, of course, it is not, when you talk about ethnography, it is not only about the dealing with indigenous people. There's so many cultures happening around in Filipino context. Even in urban setting, there you can make use of ethnography. Okay, I will be giving you an example later on. So when so what is the focus of ethnography? The focus of ethnography is culture. You would like to understand the lifestyles, interviewing individuals, groups. So this is already about method. So discovering indigenous or organic psychological processes. So you would like to discover organic organic processes working in the life of a community, for example, and explore connection between life on the ground and personal psychological assumptions. So it is very important that as you dive into a certain culture, you don't abandon. Okay, you don't alienate your own perception and how you see things. So, for example, our learning about the West, psychology from coming from the West, our influence from the perspective of the West. So we don't abandon that, but at the same, but what we do is we look at on how the applicability of the concepts that we have. So given also the given the situation, given the phenomenon, ethnographic phenomenon happening on the ground. Okay, so always create a link between what is on our head, our own bias, our own assumption, but at the same time, l- um, um, put putting that against or juxtaposing that against a specific phenomenon on a specific culture. And I think I told you before when I was working on the on war, on the trauma of children, when I started to use what do you call this, some psychological processes, then I realized this is the the children who's experienced war do not need that psychological processes. What they need most is the most basic, and that is the aspect of being able to save their lives as an aspect of survival. So psychology is how you're going to look into the aspect of survival as the main tool for you to help the children who were violently experience war. Now, let's look at some examples of ethnography. The Manobo tribe's understanding of child development. I'm telling you, Manobo, for example, any indigenous people will have a different understanding of child development. The child development that we understood in psychology as, as described by the West is entirely different in the understanding of Manobo tribe. But what exactly is the understanding of the Manobo tribe? And that is a very interesting study. And we have how many indigenous tribes in the Philippines? Hundreds of thousands of indigenous tribes in the Philippines. Okay. The next one is Bataan March and how it shaped the Bataan community. You're familiar with our history, right? I have some writings on this and just trying to share about this. Because when we're talking about traumatization, individual trauma, and how it is impacting, for example, if you're trauma, you had experience of trauma when you were a child, so you carry over that trauma in your adult life. But when you're looking at the history of the Philippines, we have been traumatized by our different period of colonization. And this is not only trauma, this is a life-changing trauma. It has killed people, it has massacred people, and it has shown immense violence in the community. And that the example is the Bataan Death March. Actually, if there was no lockdown, this is one of my projects that I would like to work on. I would like to see how the Bataan Death March changed the perception of people about the community, on how it has impacted the culture, the beliefs. What is something about that Bataan Death March history, a very tragic part of the history, creeped into the consciousness, how it creeped into the consciousness of the community of Bataan. The next one is the behind bars, the culture and well-being of inmates. So what is the culture happening? And given that culture, what is the well-being? How does that promote the well-being of the inmates? Okay, that's very interesting. But it could be very scary also. It's, you have to be prepared for that culture. Okay. Social media and technology, the perception. So, for example, with the advent of the social media and technology, it has crept in. Has already intruded the life of the indigenous community. So, what is the perception of the Aita tribe and the implications to the practice of community psychology? So, as you look deeply into the Aita, the ethnic experiences of the organic experience of the Aita tribe, So you would like also to look into how the social media is influencing the beliefs, the culture. So given that, so you can make use of that as a tool or as a jumping board, as an element in understanding the community psychology of the Aita tribe. Okay. The next one is the narrative inquiry. This one is very much related to case study. Only that the narrative inquiry is more of dealing with individual cases. And again, it is a narrative inquiry explores single individual and their experiences and present important points in a person's life that will reveal the life of a person. So you would like to go deeper into the story so that you'll be able to, when you dig deeper into the just for example the story, then you'll be able to reveal some elements in the life of a person. Okay. So, what is the focus of the narrative inquiry? The focus of the narrative inquiry is the stories of individual on specific issue or concern. So you would like to listen to the story. Okay. The next one is how the story affects aspects of well-being. So there might be an aspect of the story that influences how a people behaves or how people look, some kind of self-perception, right? And or attitudes or relationship. And the last one is to connect the narrative to specific psychological construct. So you have the narrative, you have the story. So there are existing construct, there's existing psychological perspective. How do you connect that? How would a certain construct, psychological construct, explain that narrative? Okay, or back up that narrative. So let me give you some examples of narrative inquiry. um, the child labor, children's stories of struggles and dreams in the sugarcane field. So, so you combine different stories of children. I, I, I have been into this study 15 years. I don't know. I think yeah, 13 years ago. So I was commissioned to do by one NGO, non-government organization in France. I was awarded by that organization to conduct the study on spirituality of child laborers, somewhere in Bacolod, yeah, and Negros also, I think, yeah, Bacolod and Negros. So I listened to the stories of children, very painful stories of children who are into labor, into child labor. So when you listen to the stories and struggles and dreams, I mean, children will be able to bring in, um, to expound more the situation, the difficulty, the pain, the struggles, the challenges, everything. There's so much to think about. There's so much to that we don't understand on the struggles of children who are child labor. And the next one is married life of sexually abused children. In my last 20 years of practice as psychologist, I have encountered lots and lots of um, cases on sexual abuse. It's the impact of, the impact of sexual abuse will vary from person to person. Okay, so when you're looking into the narrative inquiry, it will bring you different story. And given different story, that will give an idea that, all right, um, it explains that Tagalog parang iba-iba ang pinagdadaanan o iba-iba ang pinanggagalingan at iba-iba rin ang pagdadala na mga, for example, na mga batang naabuso. I also have a study on this. I have not published it yet. Okay, I have not published this yet. The runaway kadama. You know what is a kadama? It is an Arabic word for slave. Okay, I have collected the narratives of, because I told you before, I volunteered in what do you call this? In the embassy. I volunteered in the embassy. I will not mention the embassy anymore. So I volunteered as a psychologist to address to respond to the needs of the runaway of overseas Filipino workers, running away from the abuse of employer, running away from being what do you call this, parang ano ba yan? Parang mga napagabintangan, and they were being threatened to be arrested by police, so they ran away. Okay, so there are just so many cases, so many stories happening. So runaway kadama, a narration of modern slavery. So in 21st century, modern slavery is still happening in a different way, in different context, but the same weight of suffering. Okay, action research. Um, Action research is also a very popular one. It's a very current process. I think it started um, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Okay, this is an evaluative, investigative, and analytical approach where a researcher with the participants understand and solve a problem. Okay, all right. So when you start to talk about the pragmatic, the realists' perspective, philosophical perspective, so we can always associate the, so going back when we discuss the philosophical framework, philosophical perspective. So we can always connect that with this different methodology dahil meron mga pinanggagalingan yan. It did not pop up for nothing. Parang there's always a reason why this kind of methodology surface primarily to respond to a specific issue of the time. It's like, for example, the science of the time, the zeitgeist, all right? So the sign of the time is, for example, corruption. The sign of the time is abuse of people. The sign of the time is discrimination. So different methodology is surfacing, is coming up in order to respond to certain situation. All right. Okay. So the action research is primarily not only to understand a specific issue, but be able to respond and come up with a solution to a problem. So hindi mo lang siya pinag-aaralan. Hindi mo lang iniintindi ang isang phenomenon or isang sitwasyon. Pero during the research, you create an opportunity to solve the problem. So part ng research ang mag-come up ka ng solution sa problema at itry mo yung solution na yon. Okay? So you will end up creating a solution within a research. So hindi lang siya a description of a problem or creating a or presenting um, an opportunity. Hindi ka lang nagpe-present ng solusyon, pero nagkikreate ka talaga ng opportunity na masolve yung problema. The focus is to understand the problem, finding a solution to a problem, testing a solution, evaluating the solution, all right? And that also, again, testing is the implementation of the solution, then the collaboration between the researcher and the participants. So it's not only about you as a researcher drawing the data, it is also about the participants understanding the data. And given the data, you come up now with a consensus, a collaborative effort to come up with a solution, right? So let's see some example here. problem-based learning, cognitive engagement, and self-confidence. So you're looking into, for example, using problem-based learning, problem-based learning with grade 6 students. So you would like to see how the problem-based learning pedagogical process could help children enhance or strengthen their cognitive engagement and self-confidence. So for example, nakita mo na during your research, ito yung problema, ito yung problema ng mga bata. So you come up now with a solution, and your solution is a problem-based learning. So you would see for yourself, together in collaboration with the participants, the children or the teachers, on how problem-based learning could possibly help the children. Okay. I have given you this example. Okay, I have given you the article about this, the Pintakasi and community violence. So my research is also an action research. Okay. So because I was together with the community, we were able to create an opportunity to respond to the problem of violence happening in the community. And the last one is empowering students in online learning during the pandemic. So for example, I'm now conducting a research, for example, with you. Okay. So while doing this, we're trying to find out what could be an empowering way to help the students online. Okay, because we are in the context of pandemic, so there might be a different scenario in term, not only in the space, in the learning space, but different scenario, different context happening around. So what could be a better way to empower the students in online learning? So I might be able to come up with a solution. The students will be able to come up with it. Let's see how things will work. Okay, so the study does not only give an opportunity for us to understand the learning process, the teaching learning processes during the pandemic, but at the same time, the research provides an occasion for to to come up with a solution. Not only a solution, a simple solution, but an empowering solution to the students. Okay. So let's now look into the mixed methodology. I will be discussing about this sometime before the end of the semester. So mixed methodology is a research process that combines different methodological approaches. So when you say different methodological approaches, not only within qualitative research, so it's now um, a it is now an effort between the it is a it's a emerging is emerging between qualitative and quantitative research, a methodology rather. So what is the focus of mixed methodology? And the focus is to strengthen the credibility of research and overemphasize specific elements, because the assumption is that so um, the quantitative has its own strength, the qualitative has its own strength and its own weakness also. The other one has its own weakness also. But you come to put it together, then you create a what do you call, an opportunity for a more a rigorous, a more robust way of exploring a specific study, specific data, or a specific intention for research. Um, Again, the goal is to strengthen the credibility of research and overemphasize specific elements. So if you like to overemphasize specific elements, so you make use of mixed methodology. So there are some elements that can be emphasized by quantitative research. There are some elements of the research that can um, be highlighted by qualitative research. Okay, so it's a combination of qualitative methodologies. When you talk about qualitative methodologies, it's a combination. For example, If you're going, you go deeper into the three articles I shared you my own article. Those are combination of different methodologies, a combination of ethnography, case study, and action research, and a bit of narratives. Just so many things happening in my research. So it's a combination of qualitative methodologies. Then, uh, and we talk about triangulation. I will elaborate more of that later on. Um, so when you talk about triangulation, it's just not only about, um, it is about the integration of the strengths of quantitative and qualitative. Okay, and as triangulate and triangulate has many has many meaning, has many connotation, has many implication in terms of research. But triangulation can also be associated with different. For example, you are five researchers and you combine the different perspective of different of five researchers. So you also you also how do you call this, call that the triangulation. Triangulation can also about um, solidifying data coming from different sources, and and that is also triangulation. And when you try to strengthen a specific claim using different, I mean, connecting that with different concepts, that is also triangulation. When you make use of an external researcher to look into what's happening in your research, that is also triangulation. And the last one is present diverse lens in describing a phenomenon. So mixed methodology is you're trying to to give the for example the reader a different taste of looking at the data. So there are different ways by which you can look at the information. I mean, derived from the data. And examples of mixed methodology. So you have children's perceptions and experiences and online learning. So you can make the perceptions as your quantitative, and the experiences will be your qualitative. Okay. The indigenous coping styles, the case of the Durai ethnic group. So this is an example. The first one is an example of the merging of quantitative and qualitative. And my next example is the merging of different qualitative methodologies. Example, indigenous coping styles, case of the Durai ethnic group. So you have here ethnographic study at the same time case study. Okay. So what is the common denominator among these methodologies? Is all about listening to the stories of people. From the grounded theory, the phenomenology, until the mixed method, it's simply about listening to the stories of people. Only that we have different way of looking at um, the story, different ways of listening, different way of capturing the narratives of people. So you have choices. Again, is the um, what is common is about being able to establish or being able to um, develop our skills of listening to the stories of people. All right, for your assignment, I would like you to answer the two forms. The first form will be module 3 exercise. It's just very simple. The usual thing I will be asking you about erasure question and your understanding of the lesson, understanding of the module rather. And the second form is, this will be the first part of the midterm exam. Okay, and you just open it and you will understand what I will be asking you. The submission of that will be on November 5, and the first form will be submitted today or tomorrow. Okay, and the next is again the second form will be submitted November 5, 2020, and the leader will submit because this is a group work. The second form is group work, so the leader will be the ones to submit the form. Okay. And lastly, just friendly reminder to all of you to continue writing, continue exploring what you needed to explore in terms of your research. So what you needed to do now is, for example, now you might be able to choose your methodology. So given your title, what methodology are you going to choose? So given the methodology that you're going to choose, how will it change your title? You're going to modify your title within that methodology. Okay, explore for yourself.